Hello, welcome back to Mirror Interpretation Todorova. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Joanna and I am an interpreter, and today I'm creating a video to Oksana Mods. Hi Oksana, this video will be available for some time in members only. I think I will publish it because I find this question very relevant. Thank you for that, Oksana. So before I start, you can join the button and have me do a video like that for you, like the one that I'm doing right now for Oksana to answer her question. $3.99, you're gonna find different job opportunity interviews, and once a week I do a vocabulary drill where we exercise together in different languages to see how difficult or how well we know terminology that I have a weekly mix. Said that, $7.99, you will see more videos about what I do, where I work, my job interviews, some additional hacks, and so on and so. So the question that Oksana tell me is, can you please create a video for telephone interpreting for new interpreters? And how do you do to deal with new terminology during the telephone call? So I will start with a short story here, guys, and then I will give you some hacks or some things that I find useful for telephone interpreting, and some things that helped me in the beginning with that type of interpreting sessions. So the story is that, if you know me or if you don't know me, but when I started to interpret, I was working as business to business only interpreter simultaneous in a trade fair in a town called Rimini, and the fiera was called Rimini Fiere. So I was doing simultaneous only, right? In person. And if you're familiar with in-person interpreting, seeing the person, having non-verbal communication, being well-dressed, presenting yourself, it really helps in a way, I find out, for people to treat you with more respect, to address you more professionally, and kind of give you the time and the space to managing the flow of the session, to interpret. Sometimes when I was interpreting during these presentations that the companies does, each of which is 20 minutes or so, they would really like serve me coffee or water and give me that few seconds or a minute break with a more general conversations, because they understand that working this job 8 hours in a trade fair with all the noises happening around, it's kind of difficult. But on the phone, nobody sees you, and nobody perceives you how professional you look. Nobody sees how hard you try. Not seeing the person create this extreme gap of professionalism. I find it challenging. Why? Because if the people sees you and sees that you make the effort to look good for them, the way they perceives you change, believe it or not. Yes, we subconsciously perceive information through our eyes, and we prejudge people on the way they look, or even if you don't look beautiful, just the fact that you made the effort to dress properly, it gives you this positive vibration, this positive connection, if you want, nonverbal connection with the other side. And when you're on the phone, you don't have that. The number two thing that you don't have, that's my work line, I'm gonna not take this call. So the number two thing that you don't have on telephone, it's the nonverbal gesticulation of the other side. So for me, that I work in trade fair, I was able to read the people and understand if they're upset, if they want more information on a certain topic, or they want to cut it short. A lot of the times when I was working in this government like trade fairs, let's say tourism or international development of, I don't know, internet, whatsoever, telecommunication, the buyers, when they meet me in the morning, they were sharing their goals with me, and I was able to help them reach those goals and get the information they need from the trade fair to bring it back home and develop the business connection, the business relationship, the business negotiation, whatever they wanted to do. Here, you don't have this opportunity because you don't know the call. And the number three thing is that when you see people in person, you're able to read their nonverbal language, body communication, which is different for each country. And unfortunately, over the phone, you don't have that. So for me, having this, I'm very visual, very analytical. I actually spent some years of a nonverbal communication trainings, like a lie detector type of trainings, studying Russian language. I don't know why they train us that in the university, but I had this let's say advantage because I was able to read people. I was able to perceive when they wanted to go more further in certain things and less, and so on, talking about the communication exchange. So working in a trade fair and doing this as an interpreter, and having in mind that we all had like certain short gap of times to get this information for each meeting, it was very stressful. But having somebody that speaks to you, that trusts you, and that relies on you in this business meeting, trusting that you're gonna do a good job, it was really helpful to me. And then suddenly I moved here. Suddenly I always wanted to move here to USA, even while I was studying my first master in Bulgaria, which is over there. So for me to just switch to telephone, I will tell you, it was very, very stressful. And the most stressful part for me was the fact that I'm not gonna see the people. I'm not gonna be able to understand, to read, to see how they feel, to make them comfortable. I would not have this preparing to the session with the client. I would just be thrown into a session, and unfortunately, for my bad luck or good luck, now I can look back and I can honestly tell you that my first sessions were extremely stressful. Why? Because I was thrown in this session where providers fight with limited English speaking members over something, and they would only add me when they're both sides so angry that they would just scream to one another offensive things. So saying that story, hereby end of story time, I'm going to share with you, Oksana, few things that really helped me get calmer and get more confident in telephone interpreting. So I find out that the number one thing that affects us interpreters on the phone, it's the stress. And in medical interpreting, for me, the stress was this constant thinking that if I make mistake, somebody may die. And this type of a responsibility, feeling responsible if I make mistake in the medicine, if I make mistake in the terms, if I make mistake, it was just the weight of feeling responsible for somebody else's life. Because when you do the training, actually they train you that you should be very precise, you should be careful. If you don't understand, you should say, interpreter speaking, interpreter need clarification, interpreter need repetition. Ma'am, this is the interpreter speaking, can you simplify the term for me? So unfortunately, having to think constantly about the responsibility of your job, or how important it is for you to measure each word you use during those sessions, is something that really affects you negatively affect me negatively. I remember the first day that I did the telephone interpreting, I did few medical calls, one of which was 911, and we were doing CPR on the phone, and as I was used to do the physical interpreting in person, that was very stressful to me. I remember that this CPR call lasted about 20 minutes. And after this, I logged off and I just went to walk and breathe because I was so overwhelmed about it. So the stress, in fact, affects your performance, believe it or not, very, very much. So for me, now that I have about 7 years of telephone interpreting, I prefer the telephone interpreting better. It makes me feel more calm. I am home. I am safe. I am ready. I do prefer working from home right now, and I do prefer telephone over VRI, because in VRI you have to stay still exactly the way I'm sitting right now without moving and just looking professional, which could be difficult. A lot of people will do different things on video remote, like moving, like trying to stare closely and all these kind of things. I see some people do this. So telephoning interpreting, it's, for, in my opinion, is the easiest way to do money with languages. But there is few hacks that I will advise you. And I will call this video Google for interpreters. I saw some other people did similar videos sharing some things that I don't think they're very intelligent or very reasonable, but I will tell you how I do this. So first of all, the notes. I know you guys can think whatever you can think, and I know we all like tablets, we like technology. I discovered that there is no faster way to take notes than on paper, pen and paper. I could show you these notes. You're not going to understand a word from it, because the truth is that this is my own slang that I use to write notes. But as you could see, subconsciously my page is separated in two parts. And I will take a smaller paragraph for each call. It's gonna be half of the page, and it's gonna be, and I separate with lines, as you could see. The reason that I'm asking you to have these notepads and few type of pens is because you're gonna need this in medical, and you're gonna need this in consecutive. These notes that you see here, this one half of a page, are the notes that I take this morning. I'm talking about 6 hours of interpreting. You see how little notes I take. Talking about the notes, the number one challenge that I discovered, it was difficult for me to take notes because I was used to do this job without the notes. So for me, if I would start to take the notes when the speaker finished to speak, I will continue noting and would not start to speak. So the first challenge for me was to discover when not to take notes. And this is when they ask questions and so on. There is a special folder, note taking for interpreters, symbols that I use. You can click on it and see how I do that. But when not to take notes, it was the first, let me write it down, no notes. To discover, to be confident and believe in myself. To be honest with you, sometimes I don't even take notes for birthdays or for phone numbers. I can do it without notes, but I advise you to use notes for those, for the numbers and the address and the names whatsoever. So I advise you to have a notebook ready, to have a note, pen and paper, and just have it there. Even if you're not gonna use it, I will tell you, I have 3 or 4 of those note parts that I honestly have one in my bathroom. If sometimes I get a bedroom, if I get night call or emergency, I'm ready, or early in the morning, I always have it there. Then I have one in the kitchen and one here in the living room where I'm recording this video. So being ready in the telephone interpreting, it means to have a pen and paper ready. I prepare this every day. I take this, as you can see here, I have the older notes. I have a special trash bag for shredding. So I'm gonna throw it on the shredding bag and I'm gonna move and put new paper here for some very long calls, style workers comp. You will need at least 2 pages to take notes if those calls are the ones that I'm thinking about, legal and so on. And then the number 2 things is I use technology. I would have additional device. I do have a computer on, and I would have this additional device. I do have a few phone numbers. I used to have a tablet, but it breaks, so I have to buy a new one. Tablet is very useful and it's cheaper version between computer and a phone where you can do this thing. And as we are here live now, I'm gonna show you what I usually have. I'm just trying to find my page. Okay, it's so as you can see in this device, I have a Google Chrome icon in front and I can click it and it immediately opens to a page called Google Translate. My Google Translate is set up in English, and I will tell you why I have it in English. This is the first page that opens when I click on my Google, and the reason why is because I use this page. So I have a Google Translate from English to target language. Usually this is how I have it because unfortunately you cannot have, if you speak 5 languages, I personally do, you cannot have all the typing, all the keyboards in these different languages. I don't have it. So I would normally spell the word in English, or I will spell it Latin if it's the target language. So in this case, I was looking, I do know this word in Macedonian, it's called weeks, and in Macedonian is nedeli. I do have a Google Translate open because sometimes I know the word, but I'm not sure. So I'm typing right now the word colonoscopy. I didn't even spell it correctly, and the Google Translator gave me a suggestion. I will show you. Just halfway I type it and the word is coming below. It's coming fully, so if you click on the word and you go down, is giving you the colonoscopia, which is the word in target language. It's just less than a second. So the moment the provider speaks something, okay, honey, today we're gonna talk about the procedure colonoscopy, and this is gonna be a pre-op instructions. While she's talking, I already know that I don't know the word colonoscopy, right? So I still listen to her and I put colo and immediately comes out. Sometimes, let's imagine that you don't know the word in the target language. Let's say that your target language is Spanish or Italian, colonoscopia, whatever is the language. Oksana, it's Russian. So this video, let's put it in Russian. In Russian is colonoscopia. I already know the word in Russian and I know what the word means. But let's imagine that you don't know the word in English. You heard it and you don't know what it means, and you don't know what you said colonoscopia in Russian, but you have no idea what is that. You find it, you can repeat it, but you have to interpret entire call about colonoscopy, and you don't know what colonoscopy is. Well, this is why I love Google Translator, although I gotta tell you that this instrument is not always 100% accurate. But one very beautiful thing about it is that if you scroll down, you have definition of colonoscopy, and it comes out in English. A procedure in which a flexible fiber optic instrument is inserted through the anus in order to examine the colon. This is tell you in English. Sometimes you could see suggested word, and I could show you. I type just colon on it, and it says to me, двоеточие, толстая кишка, ободочная кишка, colon. It gives me the suggested synonymous or word. So, me, as I am trained and I already know this terminology, colon, it's the only medical suggested word here is толстая кишка. And as I know that I'm doing a medical call, I can use the suggested word, which immediately give me this click in my brain that helps me to know exactly what we're going to be talking about. So, and then below you could see it's another 1, 2, 3 meanings of the word. A punctual mark, it could mean the main part of a large intestine which passes from the colon to the rectum. Medical. You can immediately find this, and I'm talking about seconds. If I normally scroll, I need half of a second to know what we're talking in about. So this is why I love Google Translator. You could see it's also my business name over here. You can laugh, but I do have it. And no, I gotta tell you that in the beginning I had a lot of paranoia or anxious to check the words just to make sure. But after a little bit of time doing those exercises, the medical terminology weekly grill that we do with members only, the videos that I publish in different languages, you could see that this thing really trained me, and right now I rarely use it. As you were seeing, it was said in Macedonian, which is the 5th language that I speak, where I feel less confident. And sometimes even if I know the word, I will just make sure. I will just type it while we're speaking just to confirm, just to make sure, you know what I mean? So this is how I use Google Translate. And I will tell you, I don't advise you to have it in your language, because a lot of times the words that you're not gonna know would be in English, unfortunately. Your mother tongue, you can always explain a word and kind of make it understandable, but for English, you have to know the word. So for me, I saw a video suggesting you to put your Google in your target. Don't do this. Put it in English, because if you are in the USA, if you work with English languages, the main language that you're gonna speak is gonna be English, and if it's a Russian, it's gonna be a Russian for me, and so on and so on. Sometimes I do have speaking some Ukrainian or some slangs of Russia. I know Ukrainian is a separate language and they have a different alphabet and so on. But for me, in my head, Russian is a slang of Ukrainian is a slang of Russian, although it's a separate language, but they have Cyrillic and some Latin symbols inside. So for me, I will have it in English. I will always have the translator English target language. And if you see here, if I press where it says Russian, it opens a list of languages. And there it says recent languages, and you see it's the one that I used recently. If I click on it, I can find it. Then if I go down, I can say I can choose the language that I want. So this is why it's so comfortable to have this tool, and I repeat, have it in a separate device from your working phone, because having the phone that you work on and having to look on it is not as fast. So I advise you to have additional device or computer or tablet, if you prefer tablets, to do this, to have it, just to have it. This is huge peace of mind. I promise you, all your anxiety would be like dropping down when you know that in case you don't know something, you have a very fast mode to look for it. Asking the provider for this medical terminology that you don't know for a telephonic interpreting, that's negative for me. That's negative. The number 2 thing that I do, I will show you. I will just show you my last Google page. I want you to see what I did here. You see my business, and you see I put in the search box anemia. Yes, I do know what anemia is, but let's say that this is a word that you don't know, or terminology or procedure. If you scroll down right here, see what it says? It says lack of blood, a condition in which the blood doesn't have enough healthy red blood cells. You have the description right away. If usually is in the first page, it says the symptoms, the medicines, and so on. I was searching this because I was preparing some slides and I wanted to see a picture of it. But said that, having Google open like this, and if there is any word that you don't know, I don't know what word in English is. Let's say you don't know what is the liver. What is a liver? No. I just type a liver, and you see it immediately shows me the liver is an organ about the size of a football. It's just under your rib cage. The liver is essential, blah, 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 ridding your body of toxic substances. So using Google and having it there to Google a word, it's enough to type it down. It helps a lot. Just having it there. I will tell you, the last 2 years, I used it one time in a call. It was a few months ago. It was huge. It was this brain disorder disease that I asked the provider if we had to ask a patient if they had this disease or somebody in their family had it. I'm like, excuse me, ma'am, this is the interpreter speaking. I don't know what this means. Can you please simplify? She also didn't know the meaning of this term. She said it's some kind of a disease related to a brain tumor. Maybe. I said, okay, hold on. And I just type it here and immediately come out. I understand what was it. Even though I didn't know the word in the target language, I was able to explain what the disease consists in and ask the person if somebody in their family or themselves suffer this type of disease. So that's why this is so comfortable. And then I have one last thing. I will show you the icon. It's this one. Maps. Google Maps. I don't use this feature as much, to be honest with you, but I do have it in this device that I'm not working with, and I do use it sometimes. How I use this? No, I don't use it every time I have to write down an address. I am not so anxious to go and search it. I do trust my senses, and usually the Russian speaking members are able, some of them, to spell the numbers in English or spell the streets and so on. But sometimes it happened to me maybe a few times a year when the Russian speaking members have difficulty to spell the doctor's address. Let's say the doctor address is 250. Okay, I put Pearl Street or North 7th Avenue in Brighton. Okay, let's imagine that this is the address. And they don't know what... я не знаю, что такое N. Ты знаешь, N такое. They don't know what is N for. Like, it stands for north or east or west or something. So while they're spelling it for me, I just type it on Google Maps, and the correct address is appearing, including the zip code. This is a very good tool, especially for doctors' offices. I will tell you, I have used it maybe a little bit, not as much, but this is additional tool to have. And and the last part of, so this Oksana is how I use those instruments for working over the phone, having a telephonic interview with someone, and having difficulties with terminology that I don't know. I would call this video Google for interpreters and translators, and how to use it. Although have in mind, not all the words are precise in Google Translation, and I use it just as a suggestion. Yes, I do have dictionaries. They are right there. You cannot see them anymore, but I have it around the house. Sometimes I just read a few of them a day just to exercise my brain. During work or during interview, you wouldn't have the time to check terms usually in those books. That's why I advise you to use Google. And that's why I love you, Google. We love you, Google. So said that, the last part of this question is how to deal with new medical terminology during an interview. Okay, guys, so the interview has it's a different animal. The job interview over the phone, where they're gonna test you for terminology, all of the companies that test you over the phone, so-called OPI interviews, they have something called skip. Oksana, there is this videos called Bilingual Target Language Proficiency Test. I have terminology in Russian. There is a folder that I'm gonna attach here. And I also have Bilingual Target Language Proficiency Test, medical terminology in English only. So there are two folders that I will advise you to check. One of them I did with this very pleasant Russian lady located in UK that are in Russian English, and the other part is English only. This is the most common, and if you know them, 99% of the tests or OPI tests include those type of terminologies. So I don't tell you stop on them, but I tell you should. So as I was saying, sometimes there is words that you don't know. I will tell you, if you do check those two folders that I create, one Russian English and the second one Bilingual Target Language Proficiency Test, where are this terminology from 9 body systems, the most common one, I don't want to say 99%, but for sure 90% of the times you will feel prepared for those interviews in two languages. There is one company that did test me on abbreviations. So normally they called me and they give me terminology in English, let's say gallbladder, and I would say this is a body part that produced the bile liquid that help to break foods and fats. So they give you a term and they want you to describe it in English. Normally the on-the-phone interviews for the new interpreters will be in English. The first part is going to be English only. 99% of the times is going to be English. They will ask you to tell a little bit about yourself. And normally the interview would start before they ask you for any terminology, but they would want you to see how do you speak in English. So for the interview, for this process of presenting yourself, very important few hacks I'm gonna give you. Number one, some of these interviewers are very rude. This is the truth. Some of these Russian interpreters that I have accidentally monitored, accidentally because I was not scheduled, but it happens, they're also very unprofessional. For example, some lady was interpreting for older man and she called him Papa Davайте. It's like a grandfather fatherly. She talked to him very fatherly, very like she was his daughter, you know, which is not so well seen in the USA. I know in our Slavic culture, speaking like that is kind of normal, but it's not professional looking at from the USA cultural point of view. So the interview will be in English. So always in English, and the interview will start, for example, hello, Oksana. They ask you all the same question. And the question is, can you tell me a little bit about your experience as an interpreter? And usually, if you don't have experience, you can mention your education or like interpreting for parents and relatives. That also is some kind of experience which I advise you to include, which usually it's a good thing to mention. If you're novice, usually you should know the three modes of interpreting, which is consecutive for medical. You said medical in terminology, so you're gonna say you are novice and you feel more confident speaking or working as a consecutive medical interpreter, which is gonna make the other side understand that the slower mode is more appropriate for you, which in this case mean that if I tell you blurry vision, you have to be able, 1, 2, 3 утомленное зрение или туман в глаза, you have to be able to say the target word right away. Because in these interviews, unfortunately, there is no context. And I think that the hardest part to pass those interview tests includes to the terminology. These short parts that they give you terminology, and they said, okay, for example, I remember the last term that they told me, it was свинина или говядина. This is a pork meat or something. Говядина is it's like a beef, I think. So this is nothing to do with medical terminology, but they give it to me, свинина, and I immediately had a connection with this fat meat, but I was trying to find a medical term, and then I have 3 seconds and I said skip. So the challenge here is that you don't have association in a phrase. For me, it's more easy because it reminds me, it makes my brain click. But if it's just like that, it's more difficult. So that's why I do these weekly grills. Now that you're my subscriber, you can see I do some videos there that are in 4 languages where I do this every week before I shred my notes. If there is a word, for example, a word in Russian for me that was very challenging is желудок. In English is gallbladder. It was very difficult because we had the желудка, which is the stomach, and then желудок, the gallbladder. Or желчного пузыря would be exactly medically specific, high register, the way it's supposed to be. But if you respond both ways, it's going to be accepted. A lot of people that speak slangs or some different verification of Russian, like Kazakhstan, Ukrainian Russian, and so on, they use желудок instead of желчного пузыря. So talking about terminology on the test, a big hack, if you have interview on the phone and there is terminology you don't know. For example, they ask you желудок or живот. You're not sure. Like, for example, I used to confuse those two all the time. Живот and желудок. So желудок would be the gallbladder and живот will be the stomach. I would say body organ. If you don't know what is it, let's say liver. Это печень по-русски, печень, да? And you're not sure, you could say a body organ. You can associate the word with something, even though if you don't have exact term. Or let's say heel, pita in Russian. You don't know the word, you could say the lower bottom part of your feet. You can describe it. So having the tool to describe it also make you pass the test. Or let's say, for example, what body parts they... Apology, Oksana, this video is gonna take a lot of patching together because I get some calls, but the interview on the phone starts before they ask you any terminology. It usually starts, hello. Hello, my name is Yuan. I will be your Russian interpreter, ID 175598. So, Oksana, I'm back again trying to record this video today for you. So, for the interview itself, it starts the moment that they say hello. So, in order to be ready and less nervous, I would advise you to prepare yourself a speech, which is gonna be, I call this speech a summary. They usually ask you about your experience as an interpreter. If you do not have that much of experience like me, I have now 17 years of experience, and I have experience in all, I think in all the interpreting modes and sessions, since medical, legal, and so on. I just haven't worked in cabin. It's just one of my, let's say, goals, because they pay you very good money and you just do versus one language. So I think that would be cool for me to have as an experience, you know. But so if you don't have the experience, you should be ready to talk about your education, and in specifically education in languages. And if you don't have a master's degree, or if you haven't studied both languages in different countries like me, I will advise you to do something called, let me see if I have it here. It's called STAT. I do have it somewhere. Okay, it's on my computer. I would try to put a screenshot of it. So I would advise you to call one of those organizations and do a STAT test in 2 languages. Usually it's English and a target language. And you can do a specific STAT called, they have different names. One is called L5 language proficiency test. You can do specifically for medical, or STAT for medical. I am not sure how they are technically called, but I would advise you to do one of those stats in Russian and English. You can do it. I have done Italian. I am planning to do it. It's on my bucket list to have the certification in Russian as well, but I just did this very hard Russian training, so it's not like I need it, but it's something that I would like to have. Just why not? So if you don't have that, I will advise you to do the STAT, and I think the STAT was $120. It's worth to have, okay? And you can have it in both languages, and they will give you results in English, and you will have a piece of paper. I will try to look for it and put it right for you here in both languages, in English and in the target language. One client tested me, and they failed me in my target language, in my Bulgarian, in my native language. They tell me that I was not sufficient, which makes me understand that they were companies that try to take advantage of interpreters and sell them these testings and trainings. And when they failed me in Bulgarian, I was like, okay, these guys are a joke. So don't feel bad, okay? When I said if you have education, I don't mean only master. Let's say that you went in Russia or whatever, Ukraine, or your home country, you did a high school. This also is considered as a target language training or education. And this is something that is good for you to prepare to talk in case you don't have any formal like master degree or anything like that. I personally, with Russian language, I started with, I have it here, I'm gonna show you. So I studied Russian in University of Perugia in this center called CLA, Centro Linguistico per Ateneo. And let me see if that's Russian language. No, that's English. I think I'm just looking to see. I have a lot of those, but okay, that's also English. So I was studying English there on one side, and on the other side, I was following Russian classes. Oh gosh, I have it somewhere. Okay, I have it. So if you don't have these classes, it's easy to follow a class. Also, I'd like to let you know, outside of these English classes that I was taking in the University of Perugia in Centro Linguistico de Ateneo, I was taking an online English class with a school, British school called ABBA English, which costs about 60 euros per year. And you have different levels that you can do the classes. There is, I think each level was about 30 to 40 classes, I don't know. And in the end, you have a test. And once you finish those levels, you have a certification of English language. This is a very cheap, I will tell you, this is the best classes I found. It's called abba.com. It's the best classes I find in English because you have a video with subtitles, then you have to pronounce it, and then you have to type in. It's very, very, very good school. I advise you that school. So I had the English school and the Russian classes that I was able to provide, that I went to school to. And yes, I was contracted for Bulgarian, Italian, and Russian, hoping that the main contract was for Bulgarian. I was hoping that I will work with Bulgarian in medical. And for my shock, the first 5 years I work only with Russian. And because I have a problems with Padej, I remember the people would tell me, стыдно, ужас какой-то, Падеж, ты ушиб, как тебя не стыдно? So, especially the people from Moscow, they would judge me severely because of my Padej problem. I still have problems with the Padej. It's very complicated, especially datil nevini. I still am not very clear how to do it. By listening, maybe I'm a little bit better now, but I still admit to myself that I have this problem. And if somebody tell me something bad about it, I am apologetic. I'm saying, forgive me, I'm apologizing. So, terminology. Okay, this is how to present yourself. If you don't have education, there is few things that you can do to present some kind of a testing, some kind of a proficiency. Usually is in 2 languages. And I will put the stat for you over here, and I will put the link where you can schedule those type of tests. They're always usually over the phone, so you don't have to worry about it. Then, terminology during the interview. Okay, they would ask you classical terminology. I did had one time I failed the terminology test. It was with Siracom. And I failed it the first time. I passed the other tests with high results, but I failed the medical. I didn't have 85%. So they give me 3 weeks to study, and I study 9 body systems. And I will suggest this folder with medical terminology that are only in English, and you just have to study them. This is the truth. Sometimes you don't know some medical terminology in the interview. This is fine. Some companies want to put you down, but the most classical are high. What I did, I went on Google and I Googled the most common terminology for cardio, for the 9 body system, and I write it down. I write down about 100 terminology for each body system. If you don't want to Google it, you can go to Bilingual Target Language Proficiency Test Medical Terminology folder. I think there is about 15 videos there. They are short, 10 minutes each, and you could see the terminology that I study to pass this test. I don't think I have new terminology during interviews, rarely. Yes, there are words that I don't know. I openly say I don't know this word. Самое важное не паниковать. Don't panic. It's okay. There is words that you're not gonna know after 17 years like me. So there is no reason to feel bad, because if you start to panic of one term, I know. So, okay, one time on this test, they asked me this term. It was a term that you use on a daily basis, but wasn't something related to medical terminology. I think it was UDI. I suppose you know what is UDI. This is these things that you put not to get pregnant. Every woman knows what is UDI. Every woman's or they have or UDI or condom. These words, you know what is it? And I was like, UDI. I know what the words mean. Like, how is possible? I'm a female. Of course, I know what is UDI or female pads. This type of words that you don't expect on this type of tests. I was like, oh my gosh, skip. And then after a few words, like, I'm like, oh ma'am, I know what these words mean. It's just so funny that I didn't remember it back then. It's okay. It just happens. So you have to remember that your job as an interpreter is not to be an encyclopedia of words, because it's normal that sometimes these words keep out of your head and you just don't remember them, you don't know them, and that's fine. Important is to stay calm and remember that being pleasant is what makes out of you a good interpreter, not being an expert, because there's these people that know a lot of words, that they are trained, but they are very rude and very unpleasant on the phone. And also the tone of your voice. You have to be constantly aware that in the telephone interview or hacks, the most important thing is to be pleasant and polite. So let's make a summary of this video that was so long. The first part, I share some small story and how I started and what was challenging. And in fact, I start OPI with Russian language 99% of the time. I did Russian and I was very insecure. And because they grill me so much, I feel like I'm so confident right now because I was challenged. So having in mind that over the phone, you're not gonna have all these visible tools to help you. So being ready, number one is being ready for your session with your notepads, Google Translation and Google Maps. Have it open, have it ready, and stay cool. Number two, just stay calm, stay focused. No distraction is very important, especially the first time. It's gonna really help you to be calm and go on easy. So the stress, as I talk about it, it was a bad thing. Number four, the interview that you're gonna have is gonna always include one part that is not gonna look like interview, where they're gonna ask you a general question about your experience and about your education. So I will prepare you to write down a small speech in English and like elevator speech. Be ready for it. I can talk about myself, about my education, where I feel more confident with which language I feel like I like to speak the most right now. I don't have problems speaking about my experience or lack of experience if you want to. It's all right. It's okay. Then, so have the speech ready in English and be ready to speak about your education. If you don't have the experience, you should have prepared the speech. I am from let's say I'm from Moscow. I went to this school. My interpreting experience consists in helping relatives here in the USA. I have this type of test. If you do the STAT, which is the cheapest one, which I advise you to have, I had this type of test. If you have some experience, I always advise you to ask the companies you provide services once a year to write you a reference, because once you're done with these companies, you don't know when, sooner or later, this happens, unfortunately. You don't have no proof for your job. If you have once a year this resume or reference, it's a great thing to use and add to your resume. And then when it comes to the terminology test that they do in English, you can always describe the meaning of the word in both language, English and target language, and it's okay if you don't know it. Stay calm, stay polite, stay pleasant. This is most important, because in interpreting, you're gonna deal with a lot of people that do feel upset, that do feel angry, and so on. And terminology, yes, you're gonna learn them. You don't have a choice. You will learn them if you work with Russian. Just stay calm. Okay, Oksana Moss, I hope this video was useful to you. Thank you so much for being my member. Thank you for sending me this beautiful, interesting, inspiring question. I'm gonna try to make this video for you today or tomorrow, and you're gonna be able to see it first, and then I will eventually make it published sometimes in the future. Thank you so much for being here, and have a wonderful day, and I hope you like it. If you guys like this video, please place your thumbs up, and you can write me a comment. And if you want me to make a video like this one answering your question in detail like I did for Oksana, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, $3.99, and do some vocabulary grill once a week with me. And then for $7.99, you could see what companies I'm applying for live. Every week I upload a live for it, and I share my experience, if I have an interview, how much they pay, and some other suggestions. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.